the world's most famous sled dog race, has started this weekend in Alaska. But a lack of racers is raising concerns about the future of Iditarod. Only 33 racers at the starting line this year. Well, that's the smallest field in history of the iconic race. Usually, there are more than 60 racing teams. The event facing several challenges in recent years. We want to go ahead and talk about this some more. Joining us right now is the CEO of this race, the Iditarod race, Rob Urbach. Thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. We appreciate your time. Before we talk about this year's race, why don't you just explain to us how iconic this is, especially for the state of Alaska, and just explain to us, for those who aren't familiar with it, exactly what it is.
Yeah, so the Iditarod really honors the history of the sled dogs and how it enabled the first people from Alaska to thrive and survive and live in a place that's pretty remote and where they could travel hundreds of miles with their sled dog teams, from everything from delivering the mail to delivering food to villages along the way. Over 100 years ago, the city of Nome, there was an outbreak of diphtheria and they couldn't get the serum there from Anchorage. You couldn't fly it there back in those days. So heroically, a team of sled dogs traveled 1,000+ miles to really save the town of Nome with that serum, life-saving serum. So the Iditarod honors the culture of the native populations and the sled dog community itself. There's every village in rural Alaska used to all travel by sled dogs, well before there were snowmobiles and snow machines and airplanes that could fly through the storms. So it's part of the culture, it's part of the history of our state. And we have about 11 million fans around the world that are paying attention to us now as our race kicks off tomorrow. We had our ceremonial start today. We're traveling 1,049 miles through the tundra, through rural Alaska. It's completely off the road system. We support the race from the air. We have 30 airplanes flying to support the race. We'll do over 700 flights. And yeah, it is not a mass participation sport. In fact, there are only 823 humans that have actually finished the Iditarod. That's a very small number. There's 8 times as many people that have summited Everest. So we're not concerned at all about our field size. We're pretty excited. We have 12 people in this race that have had top 10 finishes, and there's only 24 people in the world that have actually won the Iditarod. So we're in our 51st year, and our race is underway. It's about 10 degrees, snow, a lot of snow, and looking for our sled dogs.
Now, this sounds completely fascinating, but as you said, obviously, the racers are out there in the snow, in the cold elements. Just talk about how grueling this can be, because I read that the trail is about, 10,000 miles long, or no, 1,000 miles long, and it's over the course of, 10 days?
Yeah, the winner will get in maybe closer to 9 days, and the back of the pack around 14 days. They're on a self-reliant journey with 14 dogs. So they have to carry food for their dogs. They have to cook the food for the dogs, take care of them first. There's almost no rest. They run through the night. They race through the night. There's checkpoints along the way. Every dog gets checked by a veterinarian at 23 checkpoints along the trail. But the human is really the weak link. The dogs can run 100, 110, 120 miles a day. It's the human that has to deal with extreme temperature changes, extreme fatigue. There's pretty significant sleep deprivation. They have to be part meteorologist to understand where the storms are coming and how to manage that, how to thermoregulate. They're part Magellan. They're really tenacious adventure athletes. They're out there. There's not a lot of sleep going on. They do, though. It's rolling up next to your dogs, could be minus 40 degrees. They have to really manage the Arctic camping, the Arctic environment, and the changes that come in our weather systems very, very quickly.
Wow. And obviously, so many events have been impacted since the pandemic. And as I said during the intro, just things have changed. I guess less mushers, as they are called. Correct me if I'm saying that wrong. But talk to me about some of the challenges that the Iditarod is facing.
Well, we really weathered the challenges. This is sort of, we got ourselves through the last 3 years of the pandemic. This is the first year we're not doing comprehensive COVID testing. We were the only major sports that ran through in March of 20 when the world was shutting down. We're the embodiment of social distancing. So we've navigated through that. We are now, I think, out the other side. And in our view, our future is very robust. This is our 51st year of running. The last 3 years through the pandemic were the most challenging.
Mm-hmm. What about the decrease in the racers, the dog sled racers? Obviously, I mentioned that this year there's about 33, correct?
Yes.
All right. What do you think is contributing
to 40,
that?
I mean, it's really not I think that's sort of the tail end of the pandemic in the economy. Inflation has dramatically disproportionately hit Alaska and our community. They're have to purchasing things like a bale of straw might have been $8, now it's $24. So inflation has been a big hit for us, and navigating through a lot of the mushers have summer touring businesses, and they've been pretty hampered over the last 3 years because of the pandemic. But we believe strongly that we're out of that now, and this is just the tail end of that, and we're not really concerned. 33 is actually a really good size for us. Last few years, it's actually been in the 40s, so your numbers were a little bit high. So the trend really isn't as dramatic as I think your opening was, but we have a really good field. This is not something for everybody to do. By the time you decide your dream is to do the Iditarod and actually get to the start line, it's about a 10-year period. So you need to learn the sport, you need to get a dog team, you need to apprentice, you need to qualify. It takes a couple of years just to qualify in other qualifying races.
All right, Rob, obviously I have to ask about this. What do you say to animal rights advocates who say that this race is cruel to the dogs? And what have you guys done to make things safer?
Well, first of all, I think their claims are grossly inaccurate and highly inflammatory. I've invited our friends to come up to Alaska to visit our kennels to tell us how we could do better. In fact, our dogs live in blue zones. They're super healthy. They have very little incidence of any orthopedic issues, any cancers. What you read in here is there's a huge distance, but colossal distance between the truth in the dog care is exemplary. So I'm happy to have anybody that will disagree with that to come see our race. They'll make statements such as, gee, if the dog is lucky enough to survive, they'll be crippled for life. Well, if that were true, then every dog would be a rookie on the start line. And most of the dogs of the big teams will come in here with probably all veterans. So there's a lot of misinformation that's put out there that's used by those bodies to fundraise, and there's very little interest in actual dog care.
All right. Well, what do you think is the future of this iconic race, and in Alaska especially?
Yeah, no, I think that we are really iconic. We're about as old school and as authentic as you can get. We had tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people line the streets of Anchorage to see our start today. Because of COVID, we haven't entered certain villages since 4 years, since 2019. They are super excited to have us come through their villages on the trail. More than all Alaskans and Alaskan natives, and I think people in general, again, I mentioned about 11 million people around the world will be watching us and paying attention to our race over the next 10 days. We are very aspirational. And I think that will only continue in the future, as there's very few things in life that's comparable to a journey across the frozen tundra of Alaska, and a journey of self-reliance and a journey of transformation, and during which makes us feeling most alive. So it's that, and it's the care, the continuum of care for our dogs, that I think we're a great example and a thought leader for dog care for all dog owners.
All right. Well, this certainly has been an interesting discussion here. Rod, do you have any parting words?
Watch us on Iditarod.com. You can watch the live stream of the race 24 hours a day. And those who are interested in what we do, come check us out off Iditarod.com. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox, the CEO of Iditarod and the iconic race taking place this weekend through Alaska.